Hello, this is Annie Budra, Emily Bunting, and Caroline Campbell. Using Gapminder data, we will be analyzing the relationship between the number of children per woman and the Human Development Index in several countries. The Human Development Index is a measure used to judge the development and growth of a particular country. This statistic is calculated using life expectancy at birth, number of years in school, income per capita, and other factors that contribute to a country's standard of living. Fertility is defined as the number of live births per 1,000 women between the ages of 15 and 44 years. According to the UN, however, higher fertility rates also tend to indicate a country having lower overall income due to reduced access to sexual education and contraceptives. In this presentation, we will examine the specific cases of China and Afghanistan.
The data shows that from 1980 to 2011, the women in most countries tended to have less children, between 2 and 4 per year. In 1979, the China Communist Party instituted a one-child policy. This was done in order to control population growth, and the government thought that controlling birth rates would help the economy and, in turn, improve living standards. Their goal was to have the population capped at 1.2 billion people by 2000, but ultimately it grew to 1.26 billion people, surpassing their mark by 60 million people. The number of children per woman in China in 1980 was 2.3. As time moves on, the number of children trends downward as the policy is implemented among pregnant women. By 2011, the average number of children per woman in China was down to 1.5 children. Starting in 2016, China changed their birth policy to allow all couples to have 2 children. We can expect that the number of children per woman will start to increase in the next few decades as more children are being born to couples in China due to this policy change. In respect to living standards, the data shows that as the number of children decreases from 1980 to 2011, the Human Development Index increases. In 1980, the HDI was measured at 0.404. In 2011, the HDI was measured to be 0.687. This implies that more people were going to school for an increased number of years, and people were living longer and healthier lives. Overall, the Human Development Index shows that the standard of living and growth in China increased during the enforcement of the one-child policy. However, there were many negative aspects associated with the one-child policy that are ignored in the calculation of the Human Development Index. For example, the number of males far outnumbered the number of females, posing a problem for future population growth. The new two-child policy is hoping to correct some of the problems caused by this one-child policy.
There is also a relationship between the number of children per woman and the Human Development Index in Afghanistan. China can be used as an example of how policy can affect fertility rates in HDI, whereas Afghanistan shows how certain circumstances, such as war, will affect the data. Between 1980 and 1996, you can see on the graph how the total number of children per woman stayed relatively the same, even as the HDI increased. Yet, around 1996, the HDI seems to decrease slightly, likely in accordance with the rising tensions stemming from the Taliban and the commencement of the Afghan Civil War. Despite this, the most interesting and dramatic change in the data starts in 2001, the very year that the American War in Afghanistan began. The total fertility rate, once considered to be one of the highest in the world, dramatically decreases from 7.7 to 5.4. This can likely be attributed to the response from NATO countries to the Taliban's oppressive regime on women, where young girls were not allowed to go to school, women's health care was ignored, and child brides were encouraged, all factors which can increase the fertility rate. However, the aid given by NATO forces was able to fund maternal health care, family planning, birth control, and schools, following the government lifting the Taliban's ban on girls attending school. Following this, more Afghan women were securing higher levels of education and jobs, resulting in more women likely delaying starting a family. All of this resulted in a higher HDI, despite the tumultuous landscape at the time.